Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Soul Stories because every soul has a story. And the more we share our stories, the more we realize that we are far more similar than we are different. And this holds especially true with my guest for today. Donna-Lisa Valencia is this incredible, bright soul that I met when we recorded our conversations in consciousness with Keith. Donna and Keith had known each other for a long time when Keith was in the media industry in out in Hollywood, and so Keith is the one that introduced me to Donna-Lisa, and we first met on that recording, and I was astonished to find out that Donna-Lisa and I have an awful lot in common, very parallel paths as we were children. So I am so excited to introduce Donna-Lisa and her story to you guys today, because we're going to have some fun stuff to talk about. Donna-Lisa, welcome. Thank you so much for
Oh,
being here.
thank you, Lisa. I am absolutely honored to be a part of this. And you didn't mention, I will just bubble up for people to know you're a guest of my podcast. So that is going to be posted soon so they get to hear more about you as well.
Yay. It's so much fun to share on each other's platforms and, just to get some high consciousness conversations out into the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. So, this Soul Stories is all about us telling our life stories and, how did we come here and how did we get to be where we are now? So, I know you have some really interesting stories from early on in childhood. So,
Yes.
where would you like to start with us today? What would you like to tell?
Well, I'm going to start with this moment of awakening that I had as a young adult, and then I'll bring us backwards because at that moment, I remembered a lot of things from when I was younger. And that moment was I had met a beautiful woman. We were out at a club in LA and we would walk by each other. This is in Century City out in Los Angeles, where I was before living here in little old East Tennessee, Knoxville. And she walked by and I looked at her and thought, hmm, do I know her? And then she walked by again, a little light, and I thought, there's something about she didn't look familiar, but I knew her. And she kept looking at me the same way. The third time she walks by, and I said, I'm sorry, I have to ask you, do I know you? She goes, I've been thinking the same thing. So that evening, we just were talking. We ended up stepping outside, and this is one of those magical moments where you're sitting under the stars and we could actually see stars in Los Angeles because it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And we're out on a bench between the two twin towers in Century City. And we're talking about our lives. And she opens up to me about her father passing and the story she'd never told anyone before. And I did the same. Just for whatever reason, her father, I say he had passed and she had not talked about it and she was crying and just all of these emotions. And she said, for whatever reason, I trust you so deeply and I've just met you. And so we both acknowledged that somewhere in past lives, we had to have known each other. Fast forward a few months, and she says to me, I want you to meet this intuitive, a psychic that I go to. And my immediate response, being brought up Catholic, is no, that's a sin. Because that's what we're taught. You don't go to those people. I just want to say, do you know how many Catholics want to go or choose to go to psychics? Because it's just fun. So I said, no, 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 I can't do that. And she goes, well, guess what? You're going because I already bought it for you for your birthday. And I just want you to know that you are going to blow that psychic away. She says, that's why I'm doing this, because your connection with energy is off the charts. Now, at that point, I didn't really know what that meant. But the reason I'm bringing this up, I won't even go into the psychic. Well, I'll tell a little bit, but basically, the reason I'm bringing this up is because she said to me, I said, "How do you know this psychic is someone who's valid, who really gets it? It's just not guessing, a carnival sidekick." And she goes, "This is a person who the police call on to find lost children. And she's been doing it for about 20 years and she stopped because it's too intense and she finds them." And I ended up asking her at one point, "What's your ratio?" And I think it was like 90%. That's a lot of energy finding these children, right? And she says, "One thing that this psychic said to me when I signed you up, I asked her, 'Why is it that Donna-Lisa and I are so connected?' And without missing a beat, she said, 'You were both martyrs and you burned at the stake.'"
Mm.
And I'm going to tell you, Lisa, when she told me that, I got goosebumps, I got teary, and I had this sudden, that's the reason. And I say that's the reason because I have been aware since I was a little girl about two very intense things. And number one is I have had a connection to divine source without even knowing what the word was when I was a little girl. And I say knowing because I knew as early on as 2 years old when I realized I was a big person in a little body. I've known of this deep love and connection with this divine energy. But the other thing I've known is that I have always had a high respect and fear for fire. And I've never understood why I've had this before I was told, be afraid of fire. And so when she said that, it was as if the answer just woof, came into my lap. So I will also note about this psychic that she was able to tell me things that acknowledge things nobody knew. So before I tell what those are, I'm going to go all the way back now to, as I had noted, 2 years old. I knew I was a big body, a big person in a little body. And it was kind of a comical moment. I was in the back seat of the car. My parents were driving it in the DC area. And as I say, back in those days, there were no seatbelts. So I'm like flailing around, right? And I'm next to my baby sister, and we're only 11 months apart. And I say two, I was probably a little younger. I had to be because my sister and I are 11 months apart, and she was just a little baby. So one something. And as we're going around this circle, my parents are laughing hysterically, looking for which of the 6 roads they can go to off of this circle. And I'm in this space of just laughing with them and watching. And I thought, I'm a big person in a little body. This is like my little spacesuit. And then a few years later, I was 4 and I was selling lemonade on the street in my home during the day. And at one point, a couple of policemen pulled up and I got scared. I thought they were going to arrest me for selling lemonade. They actually they ended up being my biggest purchasers. I think they bought 4 lemonades and gave me $1, which back in 1965, that was a lot of money for a little 4-year-old, right? So it's a hot summer day in Maryland. It's sweating, humidity, the bees swatting them. And all of a sudden, this young boy walks by coming home from school because the elementary school is right down the street. And I could tell, I knew he was a 5th grader. And he was carrying this big, huge stack of books and he had a backpack and he's hot and he's walking by, little kids, we don't say hi, we just kind of, like that, right? But as soon as he passed me, I had this, I went from looking at the books and saying to myself, oh my gosh, I got to learn all that stuff. And then it was this woof, this awakening that said, I know all that stuff already because I've been here before. And I just have to relearn it and I have to relearn more And then I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. But I had this awareness that, again, I was back in physical form to learn and keep learning. Fast forward to 9 years old and being the eldest of five, and always told by my mom and dad, "You're responsible for your brothers and sisters."
Mm.
We grew up every day, this little group of kids bringing in all the kids in the neighborhood. It's like, "What are we gonna do today?" And I was the leader, akin to, the Little Rascals, and kinda like Spanky because I was the short one. I wasn't short at the time because they were younger, but then my brother started growing. And I said, "Let's throw a carnival tomorrow." Great idea. So, kids, there no fear whatsoever. A whole carnival. We're gonna have it ready by tomorrow. So we go and get our crayons and our markers. And back in those days, of course, no computer. So we always were doing creative stuff, and we were making signs and games. And I think we figured out something like easily 20 different games from, ring toss or whatever you have at carnivals, right? Got the kids in the neighborhood to be at the different stands. Next day, I had the carnival, and the tickets were anywhere from a penny to 5 cents, which was, again, a lot. So we finished the carnival, and I believe we had $27.65 or something like that, which was gold. And the first thing you're thinking in your mind back in those days, we watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Let's go get some chocolate, right? And my dad came home and we're all excited. "Dad, let's go out. Let's get chocolate." And he says, "That's fabulous." And he goes, "You could spend it on yourselves. Or," I'm like, "Oh, what's the or, Dad?
Oh, no.
Or you could give it to the church and help the poor." Oh my gosh, darn, Dad. Really? And I'm guessing we each took probably about a quarter and kept it to go get some candy, right? And then I walked down the street with my dad. I said, "Okay, that sounds good." So we walk down. It's about a 3/4 of a mile to the church. And there's the Monsignor. And he is, for us as Catholics, as a little kid, the closest thing to God next to the Pope. And he's talking with us. And I give him this envelope, which I'm sure is filled with nickels. And I just give him the envelope. And I said, probably a manila envelope, right? And they said, "We had a carnival, Monsignor, and we made all this money. We want to help the poor in India." And he says, "Oh, my child." And he blessed me. I thought I'd just been blessed by God. And he's bringing the money to India and through a missionary. Well, 4 months later, I get a letter from a missionary, and he spells out every single thing every penny did, just listed it. I was in awe that that little bit of money to my family in that case was so much. I mean, it was feeding people. It was just astounding. So at that moment at 9 years old, I knew, oh, my purpose is to do mission work.
Mm.
But I didn't know what the mission work was. I thought, is it to help the poor in India? What I knew is I was brought up being told, "Eat your lima beans because the poor in India are starving." And I'm like, "Give them my lima beans."
Exactly, right. They're welcome to them.
Yes. So that was the first 9 years. Basically, by 9 years old, I was highly aware I was here. Before, I knew I was a big person in a little body, and I knew I was supposed to do mission work. And going along with my life, observing, very much the observer. That's one of the things I teach as a coach who guides people to connect with light and love and peace. Is one of the most amazing practices that we can dive into is to learn to be the observer so that we are able to step out of being a victim to instead being a person who observes what's happening and can approach it more peacefully and with peaceful responses rather than intense reactions. So from early on, I learned to be an observer because I felt I was observing the world from this shell. And I remember thinking things like, in high school, my friends would go off and go to these big field parties, we call them. And they'd all get drunk and they'd come to school the next day. Oh, I had a great time. I threw up all over the place. And I remember thinking, is it just me that looks at that and thinks that is the dumbest thing on the planet? And well, first of all, I don't like throwing up. Secondly, why would you want to drink to oblivion? And third, yes, I wanted to go to have fun, but I was already thinking like a big person. So it didn't make sense to me. Like, that's not what life is about. So, but still, I still was just like every other kid crawling out the window to sneak out at nighttime, all of those things. And get to 15 years old, and I am leaving Maryland. My family, I went to a lot of schools. I believe I calculated I've been to 13 different schools. And
Wow.
the reason is, yes, it's a lot talking about learning how to socialize, and especially because I was truly very, very shy, except around family and friends. But I was super shy. If a teacher said, I want you to stand up in front of the classroom, knowing I had to do it, I would physically just shake and. So I'm 15 now, and we moved a lot, by the way, just because my father was so amazing in his career in stocks and commodities, and he was continually given opportunities to go teach other branches and other divisions. So, and then we'd all get together at the table, and he would bring home. Usually, it was 3 different places we could pick from, and he'd bring home the flyers from the different area and the pictures, and he would take and he'd say, "Okay, let's all vote on it." So all 5 of us would vote on where we're going, and that's how we determine where we're moving. And, so basically, now we're going to, at 15, we were coming to LA. We were moving to LA. And I was heartbroken because my dearest friend, she was unable to come to the airport because she was at the beach in Nags Head. And also, I was just heartbroken because at 15, that's when we really open our hearts up to feeling love for friends on a whole different level. And what I knew was I didn't understand the love that I felt with her, but it was so deep and so intense. And again, it was that feeling of I felt I knew her. From the moment I saw her, I felt I knew her. And we went all through 10th grade, just hi, 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 but not really connecting. And then when the surprise party that they threw for me to say goodbye, big party with everybody, she was at the party. We end up sitting outside on a curb talking for about 4 hours and just talking. And again, we both had this feeling, this energy at 15, but you don't know how to put words to it. So we end up spending the whole summer together, just magic, amazing time. Definitely the time of my life when we climbed out the window a lot and went singing down the streets and things like that, right? So now I'm in the airport, my whole extended family coming from a Filipino family. That's a big old family. Everybody's there saying goodbye, grandparents on my mom's side, my dad's side. But I'm feeling this, and all of a sudden I hear over the loudspeaker. This tells you, back in those days, Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. was not that big. I hear over the loudspeaker, Donna Valencia, you have a visitor. So that's how small Dulles was at the time, this big international airport. I'm like, Donna Valencia? Me? So I look up and it's like slow mo, right? I see my friend Carter running towards me, and I start running towards her. And it's just like this, right in the hugs and the laughter. And what ended up happening was her brother surprised her and decided to bring her back up to Maryland to say goodbye to me because she was so heartbroken I was leaving as well. So we had this beautiful half hour before we left, right? And promising, I'm going to come to Hollywood. We're going to go see all the movie stars. Back in those days, we couldn't wait to see Scott Baio and Leif Garrett and Sean Cassidy. Like, we are going to see them, Ralph Macchio, all of them. And so at Dulles, they have a tram that brings you out to the airplane. And back in those days, people could walk along this platform, cement platform, so that they could wave goodbye as the tram was going out to the plane.
Mm.
So I'm waving and she's running, waving. And all of a sudden, Lisa, I see her in fire. Woo, woo, like waving fire, or waving fire. Woo, woo, and I knew, oh my gosh, she's going to die in fire. Ah, I gotta get rid of the feeling. And I'm crying, and my mom is asking, "Are you okay?" I'm just, yeah, I'm this, yeah. I can't even speak. Mom says, "You're just sad. You're leaving." Yeah, I'm sad. I'm leaving, and I am beside myself because I know she's going to die in a fire. For the next 4 months, I was so upset that my parents, and we're an extremely close family, they could see I was just beside myself during the month of August before school started. And so they even offered, do you want to go home back to Maryland and live with Carter and be with your friends for the rest of high school and just fly back and forth? And everything in me wanted to, but everything in me said, no, I cannot believe this dream. They're coming out. We're going to go see the movie stars. I'm like, no, I'm good. So for 4 months, I had the dream every single night. And on December 11th, 1977, the dream went away. And at 6:30 that morning, I got a phone call. And it was our other best friend. And I knew as soon as she called, I picked up the phone and said, just kind of laughed about it. Like, what are you doing calling at this time in the morning? You're going to get in trouble. Cause she racked up, back in those days, it cost a lot of money for long distance calls. And she would sneak the call and bring her dad's phone bill up to like $600 calling me. And she says, Donna. And I said, don't say it. And she goes, Donna. I said, don't say it. And she said, Carter died. I said, how? In a fire. That's it. So from that moment forward, I had been aware of these feelings in my lifetime as a child, but nothing to that extent. I had done, for example, levitation, right? That we learn as kids to levitate, to do that thing where you're all downstairs and okay, because we watched it on movies, right? So we'd lay somebody out on like a table, we put a sheet over them. I'd be at the person's head, another person down at the feet, two people on each side. Say, okay, two fingers, two fingers. We'd put it under. Well, children's energy is off the charts, right? So we'd all close our eyes and I think when we did this, the one that I'm speaking of, I was probably maybe 7, maybe. So 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, or the neighbors, and no one was older than me. We're like, okay, ready? Think it. She's gonna float, she's gonna float, she's gonna float. And all of a sudden, while everybody's doing it, and I kind of open one eye and I can see that they're all like really like thinking it. And I'm realizing I don't feel her head on my hands. And I peek and I see that her body has raised 6 inches off the table. And I go, and now we're going to let her down. No, let her down. I'm like, oh my gosh. Right. And I mean, just things like that happened as kids, putting kids under, one of my friends in high school called me witch because we were at a girls' party and everybody was like, oh, we're gonna do put a person under and hypnosis or whatever. And I did. I put this girl under and I asked her questions and from that moment forward, it's like, and I'm like, I don't know how I did this. So all of this happened, but when that happened at 15, I shut it down.
Mhm.
So the reason I gave the first story of my friend in Century City is because I had shut so much down. I was like, I'm not thinking that anymore.
Mhm.
And I also had experiences as a kid. One other thing to bring up, like the movie The Matrix, where Keanu Reeves suddenly, right? I would be talking to people, and all of a sudden, everything would freeze, like, and I would reach. And the best analogy I can give is if you tighten your fingers as much as you can and you feel that intensity in the tendons, the whole world felt like that. And that's why when I saw the movie The Matrix, I was like, oh my gosh, they just put it in a film. And I didn't see the static, but it was definitely the feeling of the static, and I didn't fly. I wasn't Keanu Reeves doing the high five karate and stuff, but it was definitely, and I would go like this, and my father, I remember he would look at me and he'd like, "What are you doing?" And I go, "Can you feel that?" And it was just this, so that happened. Woof, that happened through my childhood. That was an intense feeling. I wasn't afraid of it though, right? So I shut it all down at 15. And please feel free to interject anytime. I'm just
I'm fascinated. I love it. Keep going. You're on a roll.
I'm you said, "Tell your story," and things are just coming up that are like, "Oh yeah, that happened," right? So now at 17, a year and a half later, and I'm really upset at God. Why in the world would you take a 15-year-old? Actually, she had just turned 16. And I was the night before Easter, I was with her brother, and I never actually spent time with him except to see him and say thank you for bringing Carter to the airport. So her brother Sam and I met because I had flown back to Maryland for end of year, say goodbye to the friends before we all graduate. And I needed to see that she was really gone because I had not gone back for the funeral because I basically lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. And my mom and dad said, no, you're not going because they were afraid I was just going to wither away if I went back to Maryland. And so I needed to go. I needed to see the grave. I needed to know it was real. Well, the night before Easter, I had met her brother, went to go see her mom. We went out dancing in Georgetown, which is not something I typically do the night before Easter, but I just figured, let's go. I'm in Maryland. Let's have fun. And then he and I sat on the exact same curb where Carter and I, actually right across the street from it, where Carter and I had sat that night of my surprise party. And we just talked into the night, all through the night for probably a good 5 or 6 hours till the sun rose. And, doing what you do when you're teenagers, you have this closeness, you start making out, tell stories, right? He's cute. But the connection really was that he and I had never been with somebody and been able to talk about the depth of the love that he had for his baby sister and I had for my friend. And we connected it again, this major energy. So the sun is rising. There's an 8 o'clock service at her church where the church had made this beautiful outdoor garden with an entire altar, everything. So we're going to go to Easter Sunday service at this church. And I'm sitting there outside, looking at the birds, listening to everything, and feeling the energy of Carter. Again, I don't know how to put the words to it, but I'm feeling it. And all of a sudden, this thing came over me and I went, "Woof." And that heaviness that I'd had since first knowing she was going to die in fire and then happening it, and then walking through understanding why would an all-loving God take this spirit? It just went bam. And with the clarity, I knew, oh, we're here until we're done. We are here to share our love. And once we're done, God brings us home. And we get to become spirit, which in those days I probably said we get to become an angel and we fly around and we don't have to do this again. And it was this astounding awareness that she was fully evolved. And that concept is absolutely not taught in the Catholic religion. I just knew she's been here before many times and she is done. She is fully evolved. And God said, you don't need to do this anymore. You're done. You get to come home. And this was part of a 7-year journey I had. I've had 3 7-year journeys. The first one had to do with understanding the relationship of life to death. And during that time, I had a grandmother pass away. I had a teacher that I loved in college pass away by killing herself, things like that. I was walking through a lot. So I had a 7-year journey in understanding the relationship of life to death so that I could come to peace with it, which has been a huge part of my guidance in teaching and coaching. And I didn't, and so now we're at this place of my next 7-year journey, which had to do with the relationship of sex and sexuality and sensuality and understanding love and all of this. And for me, that was coming to grips with one understanding. I love men. I love women. I'm attracted to both. What am I feeling? Oh my gosh, I'm going to hell. And because again, Catholic religion, you're
Mm.
going to hell. And again, pondering as a kid, how can an all loving God send me to a place to burn forever, let alone to burn? And that big ding, ding, ding came for me when I was in a science class in 10th grade. And we had to fill out this test. And it said, where do we come from? And I didn't find the answer that said Adam and Eve. And it said apes. And I went, I didn't come from an ape. I came from Adam and Eve. And at that moment, I realized there's some disparity in the world. So I wrote, oh, sorry, God, I got to put down ape. so, so I am now in college. I'm going through this next journey of evolution of understanding again the relationship of who I am as a person, a physical woman, to men, to women, understanding my feelings. And it was during this time that the awakening happened for me of tapping back into what I knew as a child. So it had been to that moment, it had probably been, again, we were 16 when she passed. And so it was probably easily 10 years before this energy came back. And the way it came back was we go back to this psychic who I am now sitting with for a session, the one who has said, you were a martyr, died on the cross, and that's how you two know each other. And I'm very like, yeah, right, this is a joke, right? I'm like, I'm not going to tell her a thing. Let's just see what she comes up with. And she starts off the very first words out of her mouth. I'd never told this to anyone. She goes, you just got out of a 7-year journey, and it started on this date and ended on this date. And at that moment, I went, like, you know this? Because even my friend didn't know this. And then she says the thing that just took my breath away. And she said, and your friend, she got to this place where she was talking about my friend because who had passed. And she goes, your friend just came back to you and she told you everything's going to be okay. Those were her exact words. And she had just come back to me in a dream, the exact same dream, 7-year dream, right? So this is where the awakening happened. And at the very end, I said to her, I want to know, because I still had this little bit, even though everything she said, nobody else knew on the whole planet. But I'm like, okay, I got to still see what happens here, right? And I had asked early on, do you speak with the dead? Because that was still my terminology. And she said, yes, but I don't like to. I said, okay. So then at the end, she goes, do you have any questions? I have about 10 minutes. And I said, no. I said, no, I still was wondering about my friend who passed, but it's okay. She goes, well, let me see. What do you want to know? I said, all I'm going to tell you is her name is Carter. That's it. I was like, I'm not telling you a thing. Let's see what you know. And actually, that's when she said she just came to you and she told you everything's okay. And she's talking about little things and I'm listening and she's basically acknowledging what I knew. She said she's not coming back. She's fully evolved. So again, affirmation. So that was the moment, like she woke it up. Like, oh my gosh, that's what I said when I was 17. So bink, we're opening the door. And then at the very end of it, she goes, one other thing. She goes, huh, that's odd. said, "What?" She goes, "Something about little hard candies?" Oh my gosh, Lisa. I had carried guilt and shame about not sending my friend Carter Hard Rock candy because when I had moved to California, she said, "I want you to please send me Hard Rock candy." And I never did. So I had carried from 17 to about 27 the guilt. Oh my gosh. And so at that moment, it opened the door of the vortex. I laughed and cried out loud. I'm like, oh my gosh. And that was it. Very shortly after that, just to show how powerful that door opened, I go to some clubs in LA dancing 3 nights in a row, brand new club. I win the lottery. First night, just as an example, I walk in, we get our little ticket with a surprise. And I say to my friend, "Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. They're getting ready to call the numbers. I won. Hold the ticket." She's laughed. She goes, "Yeah, right." I said, "No, you don't understand. I know these things." I go to the bathroom, come out, they're announcing, like, "Where's the winner?" I said, "Did you look at the ticket?" She goes, "Oh my gosh." I said, "I told you I won." I go and I win, right? So that was at 26, 27 years old. That's when I realized I could tap into this energy and have fun with it. And I just allowed it to unfold for me through the years. I have just recently in November celebrated flying around the sun 62 times. So I'm in my 63rd journey. And what I can say, oh, my last 7-year journey. Let me first say my second 7-year journey having to do with sex and sexuality. Essentially, I came to peace with understanding it is not about the physical form. It is about connecting with spirit. That's it. Whatever your physical form is, embrace what you have been given. It's beautiful. It is imperfectly, perfectly imperfect, right? It's perfect. It's a miracle, right? Whatever it is, it's absolutely, I can't even say it's imperfect. It is perfect. It is perfectly, I say I'm perfectly geeky, right? So I embrace the fact that I'm just a bubbly, beautiful, geeky spirit inside of this physical being. And it doesn't matter that marketing says you're supposed to have big boobs and a 36, 24, 36, and you're supposed to do this. And like, no, I'm just me. That's it. So that was the result of that 7-year journey. And then the final 7-year journey um, took me back by surprise. I'd never expected it. It was a number of years later. And as I say, I was coming here to Tennessee right before the recession happened, and I was talking to God, and I'd made the decision to move my family here. By now, I had a wonderful partner, and she and I um, had two children who were at the time 6 and 4. They're now 23 and 21. Um, and so before we come across, I have my conversations with God all the time. I laughingly say, if you see me talking aloud alone, it's because I'm having like a conference call with my angels and God. So just know I'm good. I'm not crazy. And I had said to God before I left, I said, okay, I know I'm supposed to do mission work, but I still got stuff to do. You know, at the time I was working in Hollywood in the entertainment industry, and I'm going to Knoxville. I know, even though I don't have a job, I know it's going to happen, right? And I just want to say it didn't, because the recession followed me like a tidal wave. But prior to going, we've got this huge, beautiful motorhome. We're driving across country. We're bringing another family. We're taking 2 weeks. We are making this the rainbow trip of life across the country. And I said, all right, God, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep working till 65 and retire. No, you know what? 63. At 63, I just got to put the money away to make sure I got my kids taken care of. I don't want any debt. You know what? 60. When I'm 60, I will be ready to do whatever mission work you want me to do. And everybody asks me, are you going to go out and public speak and teach about creative direction and writing and producing? I'm like, no, that's not it. I said, it's something else. It's something I don't know what it is. One of the directors at Disney, one of the top execs, pulls me into his office one day. He says, I got to ask you a question. I didn't know who he was. He goes, I got to ask you a question. I said, yes. He goes, you are one of God's littlest angels, aren't you? And I just started laughing. And I said, shh, it's my secret. So I said, okay, God, 60. When I'm 60, I'll take care of whatever mission work you put on my plate, because then I've got the 2 houses in California, we'll have a house in Tennessee, and I'm gonna be able to help all my family. And I was planning, my nieces and nephews all know this. I'm gonna have 100 acres. I'm gonna have houses for all of them, so nobody has to suffer, worry about anything. The houses aren't just for me, it's an investment, so I can take care of everyone. Nobody's got to worry ever again about monies, anything, right? And I say, as we're turning on the key, literally, I could feel the energy shift. My partner turns on the key to the motorhome, and I knew, oh my gosh, everything. And I could feel it building up before that moment. Everything in me. I even tried to stop the journey. I even tried to back up. We had already started packing. I'm like, no, 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 no. Something's off. And the reason we went is she said, if you don't do this with everything we've already done, I'll never, ever do something like this again. So I went against what we call that lower dantian energy body, that gut feeling.
Mhm.
I said, okay, not going to, I mean, we're going to go. And I'm telling you, when she turned on that key to that motorhome, it was like, ah, like it released this thing that I was afraid of, that I knew was coming. And that's why I said, I didn't know what it was, but it was starting to bubble out. It was this energy that said, life is not what you think it is. You have no control. And the trip was, as I say, it was just like this tidal wave of this destruction energy was just
Mm.
following us, even though from everybody's perspective on there except me, because I could feel it, I could see it, everything. They looked back and loved it. And I made sure, because I made sure it was the dream trip, especially for my kids. And from the outside, from photo ops, it was perfect. But inside, I was a cauldron of awe. And sure enough, within the first 3 months, relationship imploded. Within the first year, um, all of our savings, 6 figures, obliterated because I had loaned it to someone and they bankrupted. Our homes within the first few years, lost them both. I was in a plane, almost crashed. I mean, I got sick with pneumonia, left lung collapse, everything just crazy, 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 almost like not here. And I realized as I was walking through this, I never, ever, ever, ever gave up, but boy, did I get weak, Lisa. I mean, it was like this energy was pushing me down. I was like, oh, it was like the Tarzan movies of the 1960s where you see the person in the quicksand and they're trying to hold onto the stick and then somebody lets go of the stick. You're like, oh, stick, right? And I'm just holding onto the stick. And I felt like, my analogy is, I felt like I was on the big, beautiful ship cruising through the ocean. And then all of a sudden somebody said, here's a raft, here's some water. And they said, you're going to be just fine. And they set me out alone. And I'm like, whoa. And I was beaten down. And during the course of that, I ended up realizing about halfway through it, usually there's a peak, and my halfway peak point was, I asked God, you got to help me. I do not know why I have to take the next 2 breaths. I was laying in bed for 3 days, which for me is not normal. I am a bubble of energy. As one psychic said to me, you are a 5 fire sign. He says, I've never seen that before. And I said, you have to show me. I can't breathe. Why am I taking it? And I thought, I don't know why. I don't. And then I said, oh, let me go back to when I was a little kid. And that again, the thoughts started coming back. Oh my gosh. And I realized I had 2 dreams when I was a kid. Number 1 was have children. I had my 2 girls. Okay, God, show me another reason. And I remembered the 9-year-old mission work. I said, fine, that's what this is. You're getting me ready for the mission work. And I literally, Lisa, I took my hands and I lifted my right leg and threw it over the bed. I lifted my left leg and threw it over the bed. To say the least, I'm a wild Sagittarian as well. And I just rolled rolled over on the floor and there was a pen there and I had to write a check to someone. And I picked up that pen with my right hand, my left hand, and I lifted it and I started writing the check that is just, right? Because I knew that's what this is. You're teaching me to trust you to an off the charts level. Well, I'm doing it. So I'm walking through this and I'm realizing it. And as soon as I realize it, I contact my friend and I said, you need to meet me at the lake. And we go to the lake nearby and the rain is coming down so hard. And we're along this river, I should say. Part of it is the river. And we're underneath this metal building, which is the judging booth for all the people that scull and race. They were actually going to have the Olympics there in Oak Ridge, but it was too far from Atlanta. So that just gives you a feeling of the expansiveness and the intensity of this river. And the rain is coming down so hard that the river is only about 10 feet away from us. I cannot see the water. And the sound of the rain, because it's so white, there's so much fog and rain. And the sound of the rain on the building was so intense that the metal was clanging that I had to yell to speak to him. And I said, I know why I'm walking through this. And he's like, why? I said, because God wants me to trust him at an exponential level. I've got to just trust everything is okay. And he's got me. At that moment, the rain stopped, the white clouds disappeared, the sun came up, the lake was shining, and my friend looks at me and goes, what the? I go, exactly. So that was, like I said, that was back in early, when did I move here? 2007. So that was around 2010. And so I will end this little journey because that just with the final thing, which really led me into where I am now. I knew why, but I still didn't know what my mission work was. I'm like, come on, God, I can't spend my life teaching people to be creative directors and writers and producers. That's just, I knew I went to Disney to work with them because I've always had one goal when I produce for television and film. It's to make sure that I'm creating loving, beautiful entertainment for children and families. That's always been my thing. Just spread the love, right? Which is why when Playboy contacted me and said, will you work for us? I said, no, my mom can't watch. I don't care how much money you're paying. No, right? So I'm sitting in my bathtub, which I laugh because Liz Gilbert, Eat, Pray, Love, she tells the story. I can't tell you how many people talk about being in their bathroom or their bathtub and they have these epiphanies, right? And it's just the water, right? The water, the energy.
For sure.
So I'm sitting in the tub and I'm crying to the depth of my core in this bathtub because even though I understood it, my family was dissolving. I was beyond heartbroken. My partner and I weren't even talking. It was just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? It made no logical sense. There's the key. No logical sense, right? So as I'm sitting in this tub, all of a sudden I have this separation from reality. And I see that white wall of just nothingness, beautiful white clouds everywhere. And I know I'm awake, but I can't see anything because I've been brought to this place. And I'm walking towards what I know is a curtain that will separate where I am from where this ethereal, unbelievable space is. And everything inside of me said, I'm being given permission to touch and peek, but not to enter. And so I put my hand out and I just touched and I gently parted just a little bit. And this feeling went, and it was love like I have never felt, that we cannot understand. Like, oh my gosh, that's what love is. And I just cried and cried. And the next day I happened to be going to this amazing church non-denominational Christian church called High Places Community Church, which is really ironic because I did not realize until after I had actually posted my first season of my It's All About High Vibe Connection with Donna-Lisa, with DL, my podcast. I didn't realize that I had used the word high, just like High Places Community Church. Again, because the pastor there, I told him of my vision, and he very calmly, and we'd been connected for like 3 years because someone had told me early on, you need to meet Martin. You need to. And I'm like, no, 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 no. It's not Catholic. It doesn't have Jesus up on a cross. Not, I can't. He goes, no, you don't understand. You need, well, I've learned in my life, when someone says, I feel it, you go, if it's a good feeling, go do it. Right. So I meet Martin. We're talking through the years and he's just looking at me. And one day he just kind of says, I know. I had a dream. I know what's happening with you, just like I knew with me, but I'm not telling you ever because it's just going to happen. I was like, oh, fine. So I go to lunch with him the next day and I said, Martin, I know it. This is what's happening. I saw this and the thing at the lake. And he just smiles and he goes, it's time. I go, it's time for what? He goes, for you to read the book by Squire Rushnell, When God Winks. So here we are in this little town in Tennessee, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. The last thing I think is they've got this book in the bookstore, right? Barnes and Noble. One copy. I go get the copy. Of course it's there, right? Just like when I'm in the airport, I'm like, what should I go read? And I'm standing in the bookstore at the airport for 30 minutes because I got to run to the plane. And just as I walk out, I go, I got to go back in. There's something waiting for me. And all of a sudden, like a light shined on TED Talks. That's the book. Picked it up, bought it, ran to the plane, right? So, because I know it's going to happen. So Martin says, go get When God Winks. So I'm reading in my bathroom about 5 o'clock in the morning because I would just stay up at night, just doing my thing. And all of a sudden, something says, stop reading, pick up a pen, and write. So I flip to the inner page and I pick up a pen and I just let my arm flow. And the words come out. And I'm paraphrasing, I don't know the exact words, but basically it says, you have gone through so much so that you can do so much more. Now it is time for you to go out into the world through your love, through your faith, through me. And those are the words at the end. And then I drew a cross and I drew a heart at the bottom. And then I drew an infinity sign with hands outstretched of a person. And I wrote above it, I am who I am. And then I dropped the pen and I went, that's intense. And it was, again, huge door opening to what I now understand is a vortex of energy, a knowing, a connection with the divine that has allowed me to continue to evolve through tremendous, tremendous, tremendous deep pain. And at the same time, I wish my life upon everyone if they simply had the tenacity and the resilience and the determination and the belief and the faith. And if not, I wish my life upon no one because I've only shared bits. The depth of this journey has been so intense, the awakening. And now I'm at a place where I first felt this feeling when I first moved to Tennessee. When I was first exploring it, I flew into Nashville. And as I was driving across from Nashville to Knoxville, I just said aloud, oh my gosh, I'm being carried in the palm of God's hand. I couldn't feel the road. And now when I walk, I actually feel like I float when I walk. It's not that I don't feel the ground, but I have this sense of floating and this sense of connection and this awareness. I am able to feel energy and see and know things. It's not like I walk around going, oh, I know, and I'm going to tell you. It's just I receive and I help people to connect with that. And it is one of the greatest gifts that I have been blessed to give because I don't say it's me. Every single time I sit down, before I sit with you, before I sit with my coaching, before whatever I do, first thing I do is I go, okay, God, I can't do this without you. let's do it. Let's do this. I say that when I start my day, at the end of the night, I say, thanks, God. Thanks for this amazing day.
Mhm.
You know, I could have done this a little differently. I'm sorry. I'll figure it out. No, you know, I'm just me. And then I'll go, I've got this that I've been thinking about. I'm going to give it to you because I'm kind of walking through it. I can't figure it out. So I'm going to give it to you because I'm tired. So here it is, going to bed. And that's it. And
Love it.
yeah, I know you haven't even spoken. We've just been, and I'm sorry. I just went on. I rambled.
Hey, this is all about you. It's about you being able to share your story. It's not about me. I
Oh,
love this. I love this that, you know, as you push the veil back and you feel this like incredible unconditional love. It's like this is one of the things that, is so incredibly important for us to be able to feel that love because, you know, we all hear love is the answer to every question. That's why.
that's
It's
it.
because it is so powerful, it is so strong, and when we allow ourselves to feel that in our body,
Mm,
we start to fill ourselves back up with that love. We can't give from the empty cup. And the more we have our cup filled with that love, we can walk through anything
yes.
because we're always supported. We're always full. And
Yes.
nothing has to be scary then.
And that's it. Even in those moments of fear and deepest heartache, we are so aware that we are not alone, that we are carried. And whether you call God source or the feminine divine or mother nature or Abba or whatever, what's important is not the name. Of course, I am who I am, right? What's important, or I should say, what I hope for every person in physical form on this planet is to understand that there is a divine energy that embraces all of us, that carries us through this physical life experience. The universe is astounding. And the fact that you and I can be speaking like this, and we're, what, 1,000 miles away from each other, and yet we're right here. I feel your energy as powerfully, whether I see you or not, as if I were right with you. The gift, as Abraham Hicks says, speaks of, which I find very funny, Abraham with these 5 beautiful spirits that speak through Esther Hicks, is that they say, we envy you all because we want to feel what you feel in physical form. That's one of the things we miss. And that's the part that is so intoxicating for me, is when I see each person in physical form. My teachings are based on embracing exactly who you are and also understanding you have the choice to continually heal physically, which I know is what your book is all about, what your books are about, Lisa, what you teach. We do not have control of the healing of our body, but we definitely have choices that either enhance the healing or suppress it.
Mhm.
So when I am with those who have chosen actions, whether it's what they see, what they immerse themselves into, what they eat, what they drink, whatever it is, when they make choices to break down their physical body, their emotional, their mental selves, I can see their beautiful little spirits inside of them going, hello, hello, let's let's have more fun. Let's have more fun loving life. Okay? We don't have to suffer. Why are we choosing to suffer? I know that big can of Coke with 24 tablespoons of sugar in it tasted good going down, but Oh my gosh, do you know what that bubbly water just did to your bones and that sugar did to elevate the dis-ease in your body? I mean, things like that, right? And I'm not saying we can't do it perfectly. We're human, right? That's part of being human is we get to have those tantalizing little moments when we drink a little soda, eat the chocolate, right? But then on the whole, to choose to eat, for example, I choose plant-based. Why? Because it feels right. I listen to my body. My body said plant-based feels good. As soon as I made that decision, 10, 11, 12, October 11th, 2012, done. And that's a lot for a Filipino. Just saying that, because I grew up with the pig on the table, right? With the big old apple, we cut the pig, ate the pork, right? And I grew up with meat, a lot of meat, a lot of fish. So my family teases me, what do you eat? Salad? My mom, I remember when she first found out, she's like, what do you eat? And, but I learned its flavor, right? So we have choices. And my choice was, yes, I'm not going to deny there are moments where I think, oh gosh, I would like to have that lechon, these different Filipino dishes, because boy, they tasted good. But I've learned to season other things that I make, whether it's eggplant or whatever. So it still has the texture, the taste, all of that. It's not the same, but it satisfies, it satiates that desire. And I think that what is most important for those that are tuning in here, that are really trying to connect with their souls and their spirits and their divine light, is to understand that it is the word that is used nowadays is the word practice, right? Because what does practice infer? You keep taking steps to get better and better and better and better, just like a sport. So to connect with spirit, as I teach to connect with the beautiful spirit inside of you, it takes practice.
Mhm.
And it takes the willingness to step out as the observer and to look at how we reacted or responded to a situation and shift, shift, shift slightly, fine tune, just like, a person who's molding clay. It takes time. It's not about perfection. It's about, oh, ebbing and flowing. It's like dancing, right? We learn the steps, and the more we dance, the more we become one with the music rather than thinking 1, 2, 3, sashay, whoosh, do, right? We just allow it to flow. That to me is the energy of connecting with our souls, with our spirits, with the light energy.
Mhm.
It's that beautiful, it's the dance with the universe. It's the dance with God. And I just want to note, God is all loving. Just saying. There is no energy up there that's saying, damn you, if you don't stop it, I'm going to burn your butt in hell for at least a millennium. It's not happening.
Exactly. Yes.
Do we have time for me to share one other little God wink moment?
Of course, sure.
And I say this because you'll love it because it ties into Keith and he being your beautiful partner in the YouTube world. I have known Keith, as you noted, since we were in Hollywood. And our connection, again, our divine connection is off the charts on so many levels. I'm going to bring it up to a recent story that he doesn't even know. He knows a little bit, but he doesn't understand it because I haven't given him the clarity of it, I should say, because we're meeting next week. So this past week, I attended Deepal's quantum energy group
Mhm.
summit, which is called Rise the Healing Summit. And Keith had invited me to attend. So I look, and it's only $97. Wow. And half of the money goes to helping children. I don't even care what they're doing. I'm signing up, right? So I sign up. It is 100%. It is a week filled with God winks of off the charts proportion. It was the week that said, and this is where I say, when you get a sign, this is where we learn to see the signs, connect with the energy. And the more that we do that, the more that our lives elevate to a level I can't even begin to express what it feels like. It's beyond words. So all day long on Monday, God winks where I'm teary, I'm goosebumps. I'm like, oh, my mom even, who listens with me, my beautiful She's on her 83rd journey around the sun, getting ready to celebrate her 83rd birthday in August. Even she listens with me to all of this deep diving with Abraham Hicks and Paramahansa Yogananda and Wayne Dyer. I mean, she just goes there with me. So even she is sitting in her chair listening during this summit. And every once in a while, I would turn around and look at her and she'd go, because the God winks were so big and so in my face, acknowledging where I am, that it's time to take everything I've been doing to the next level. God is going, okay, everybody, those angels that threw you upside down, I used to say, there's Job and I'm Jobette. They're all now playing a party because they're like, DL is going out into the world and she is finally ready and she is doing what we've been getting her ready for. And she has passed with flying colors. So and I have to say, the number one certificate I got, it's called humility.
Mm.
Like, I walk through everything with such deep humility where I'm teary all the time because I am so aware it's not me. It's not me. It's me and my angels and God. And I'm just the conduit of this energy, right?
Mm.
So here we are, and it's Tuesday, and Keith is a speaker. I think he's the second speaker. And the whole day, the theme of Tuesday is clarity. So Deepal is speaking. Today is all about clarity. This woman comes on. Her name is Donna, and she speaks about clarity and stuff having to do with book writing. Then Keith comes on. He speaks about book writing and his publishing, right? And then this gal Lisa comes on. Well, while Keith is speaking, I am receiving energy that is saying it's time. You have not published your first book yet. You write like crazy, but you haven't done it because life happens. And, I don't care what anybody says. When you are a caregiver, when you are, life happens, there's stuff that's put in your way. And this is part of my diving more deeply into trusting. All is well, releasing shame, judgment, all of that, right? But at that moment, it was like, it's time. Get your first book out there. You can do your own stuff later, but get the first book published, which of course, Keith has a company where you speak your book, meet with them, they create the first book. So while he's speaking, Spirit says to me, sign up now. So he's speaking, I sign up for my clarity call. I didn't realize till later, I forgot. Deepal, who started it, said, today is all about clarity. Then Keith is speaking, I'm having this clear vision. You need to sign up with Keith. I sign up for clarity call. The speakers are all done. I suddenly jump up and down. I go, oh my gosh, Mom. You know what the message just was? First girl's name is Donna. Last girl's name is Lisa. Keith. God said, it's Keith, Donna, Lisa. The night before, I had asked God before I went to sleep. So God, who am I supposed to get some guidance from next? Who's supposed to help me? I'm giving it to you. I'm going to bed. I went to sleep, forgot about it, went there. It's Keith, Donna, Lisa. I laughingly said to a friend of mine, so God doesn't know how to spell. Donna is not how I spell my name. So he does not know this, but basically it's time. I realize it. It is time because there is so much I want to share with the world. And we know that one of the best ways to reach the world is not only through our public speaking, which I know is one of my greatest gifts that I have learned, being a shy girl when I was younger, but also my writing. And so now it's time to get all that I've written and start to format it into these books. And right before my father passed away, he woke up from a dream. He called me and said, Donna. I said, yeah, Dad. He says, I just had a dream. You're going to write 5 books. I go, great. He goes, okay, bye. Click. So there you have it. And Keith and I are meeting next Tuesday. And yeah, clarity.
Ooh, congratulations.
Thank you. I am looking forward to it.
So exciting. Yes, he published the 10th anniversary edition of my book. So
Oh, beautiful. He's such an amazing, amazing spirit. Talking about, I completely understand why the two of you are like, just beautiful. And if you're wondering, yes, those sound effects, I've done them since I was a little girl, like, right? When my second daughter was born, who, by the way, her name is Carter. I named her after my friend.
Aw.
And uh, as a little girl, she didn't say any words
Oh,
for a while. And the reason she didn't is because you'd ask her things like, "How you feeling?" Woo! She learned from me sound effects. I thought that was funny.
that's hilarious. Oh my gosh, I love it.
Oh, I had no idea what we were gonna talk about today. That all just kinda came out. That's again, I just said, "I'm giving it to you, God. Let's just see what you want the world to know."
Right? Exactly. It's just like we open up, we become the empty vessel, and we just allow it to flow through.
That's it.
It's so much easier than trying to figure it out and
Yeah. Yes.
and it's like and it just comes from having that heart fully open and filled with that love.
That's it. That's it. Just
It's
love connecting with love.
so
That's all we can
simple,
do. Yeah.
right?
Which is why when I coach, I don't even take notes. People say, "Do you take notes? You know what happened last time?" I said, "No, because what's done is done.
Right?
The past is the past, and we're here. And
Mhm.
whatever this person wants to share at this moment, we share a little bit of the past, of course. You want to give me tidbits, but
Yeah.
let's talk about right now. And
Mhm.
let's see how now can become this amazing foundation for tomorrow." And
Exactly.
it's beautiful.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Donna-Lisa, thank you so much. This has been so fun. Such a wonderful
Oh,
story. Oh my gosh, so many nuggets in there. I'm sure people are going to want to listen more than once because there was so much. That was such a beautiful, rich, valuable conversation. Thank you so much for sharing.
thank you. Thank you, Lisa. And I'm sorry, we can't leave without you at least saying one of the similarities because I know what they are.
Ah,
Because you have shared them with me in the podcast. But you've got to share at least one, like, oh my gosh, similarity.
right? I mean, what you knew at 2 years old, that I knew that same thing when you had the experience with like, kind of opening the veil a little bit. That was basically the experience I had at 2 years old, was just finding myself in this space of unconditional love. Just it's so light and it's just so ah just the warmth, the embrace, the non-judgment. I mean, unconditional means literally without any conditions,
That's
no
it.
judgment, no criticism. Everything is just experience.
That's it. That's it. That's
Right?
it. And I forgot to mention when that happened for me, I had never heard the song I Can Only Imagine.
Mm,
And I don't know if you've ever heard it. It is a powerful song. So I'll just leave you with that. Anybody that's listening, it's called I Can Only Imagine. There's actually a movie about it,
mm,
and it has to do with this man's story of imagining his father in heaven. So I'm hearing the story. I'm hearing the song while I'm sitting in this bathtub when split happens.
uh-huh.
And that will help. And like you said, I'm so excited for everybody to hear more of your story in the podcast, which I'm getting ready to start producing and get out the door. We're just doing a few more interviews. I decided to do a few more interviews before I did season 2.
Uh,
Um, I just met with an Akashic reader yesterday who leads the Akashic Academy, and I will connect you with her as well. She is just beautiful.
oh, great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your soul story with us today, Donna-Lisa. And thank you to all of the audience who have been listening. And so if anybody would wants to reach out to you, Donna-Lisa, how do people reach out to you and find out what you have in coaching for?
Well, I'll send you the link, and I'm looking to make sure I'm saying the right thing. It is Whole Body Studios. I don't have the link up here. It's Whole Body Studios or Whole Body Pilates and Studios, something like that, here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And if you look up under services, you'll find wellness, and that's where I am. I also have the podcast. It's all about high vibe connection with DL. I know it's on Spotify, Apple, and supposedly on a bunch of others. Also on Fridays, I do a Friday, every Friday, something called DL's Coffee Talk. And that's live on Facebook at 10 o'clock East Coast time, 7 a.m. West Coast time. We were off for the last 2 Fridays because again, universe said, take a break, and Facebook wouldn't let me in. So I realized the computer had updated and it kicked out the app and I couldn't access my camera or my mic.
Oh my God.
So yes, my lovely co-host Jordana and I do a Friday DL's Coffee Talk, which is lovely. And it's all about, we're actually shifting to make sure it's very clear for everybody. I have a slogan, which is, I love how happy looks on you. And
Mm,
it's based on loving the happiness that comes from the spirit within. And I love how happy looks from you comes from saying, I love the happiness that has come from you from truly connecting with the balance and the peace emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. Um, and so now our slogan is, we love how happy looks on you. And we talk about health and wellness and how to be happy. And we
beautiful.
have a lot of fun.
Yay.
Thank you for
Fantastic.
asking. Thank you for
You're
asking.
welcome. So anybody that's watching, just check the show notes and you'll see all the links there in the show notes. So
Thank you.
Donna-Lisa, thank you so much. It's been so much fun. Such
Oh,
a
Lisa,
joy.
thank you. This has been an honor. It means so much to me that you invited me to do this and were willing to just let me tell my stories that, again, just kind of came out.
Yay. Beautiful. So everyone, tell your life story the way you want it to be. You are the author of your story. You can tell any story you desire. Mm, just make it a good one because you can. Until
That's right.
next time, create for yourselves a great story. Bye for now.
Bye bye. Blessings.